Audiolog Personal Journal, date April 22nd, 2020. Location Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Recorder TS. I'm recording this now because I don't trust my memory anymore. Isolation does things to your sense of time. Days fold into each other, moments stretch. I'm afraid if I don't document this exactly as it happened, my brain will sand down the sharp edges and turn it into something survivable. And it shouldn't be survivable. It was April 2020, full lockdown. The kind where the governor's voice comes through the TV every afternoon. Calm and distant, telling us to stay inside while the numbers climbed. Sirens were constant back then, ambulances mostly, sometimes police, sometimes nothing at all, just the sound of the engines echoing through the empty streets. I lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment off Government Street, 3rd floor. Thin walls, neighbors I'd never met but I could recognize by footsteps. I worked remotely until the company folded. After that, the days became a blur of bad sleep, canned food, and doom scrolling. I realized one night, around day 30, maybe, that I hadn't heard my own voice in days. Not on the phone, not out loud, not even talking to myself. That does something to you, makes you feel unreal. Like no one hears you, you might stop existing altogether. So when the restlessness got too loud, I put on a mask, grabbed my phone, and went outside. I told myself it was just a walk around the block, 10 minutes. Fresh air, nothing risky. The streets were still empty anyway. Everyone was afraid. Everyone was inside. That was true. Except for him. I saw him under a flickering streetlight near the closed bar on the corner. He was sitting on the curb, elbows on his knees, mask hanging from one ear. Just sitting there, like it was any other April night. Like the world hadn't ended quietly behind closed doors. When he looked up at me, his eyes locked onto mine immediately. No hesitation, no surprise, like he'd been waiting for something specific to pass by. He said, "You too?" I stopped walking 6 feet away. The distant markers were burned into my brain by then. I asked what he meant. He gestured vaguely up the empty street, the boarded windows, the silence. "Out because it's getting hard to breathe inside," he said. I felt that in my chest, harder than I wanted to admit. I nodded. We stood there for a second, awkward, unsure of the rules. He laughed quietly and said it was funny how we're supposed to stay apart, even when everything else had already been taken away. That should have been the moment I left. But instead, I answered him. We talked about nothing, about how weird the quiet was, how the city didn't sound like itself anymore. He said he used to love Baton Rouge at night, but now it felt hollow, like a set built for people who never showed up. His voice was calm, natural, not slurred, not aggressive. He didn't step closer, didn't push. That made me trust him. He said he lived nearby, said he didn't have anyone checking on him. I admitted the same. We shared that silence people share when they realize they're both alone in the same way. I hadn't had a conversation like that in weeks. When I finally said I was heading back, he asked me if I wanted to walk for a bit. Just around the corner. He said it felt safer not being the only one out. I agreed. We walked side by side, distance between us. Footsteps echoing too loud in the empty streets. Storefronts were dark. Handwritten signs taped to doors said closed until further notice, like prayers that never got answered. As we walked, his questions changed. Not obvious at first, just small things. How long I've lived alone, whether I worked nights, whether my building had security, whether anyone ever checked on me. I laughed it off, said everyone was asking weird questions these days, trying to feel normal. He smiled at that, but it didn't reach his eyes. I noticed then that his mask was spotless, bright white, no creases, no stains, like it had just been pulled out of the packaging and immediately abandoned. We turned down the street I didn't recognize right away. That unsettled me. I'd lived there for years, but everything looked different in lockdown. Familiar places stripped of life, rearranged by emptiness. I slowed. He didn't. He turned to face me and stepped closer, too close. I could smell him through the mask. Not sweat, not alcohol, just clean, sterile. He said. I was starting to think I was the last one left. There was something wrong with the way he said it. Not joking, not scared, relieved. I took a step back and said I needed to head home. He nodded, but didn't move. He asked, if something happened to you, how long before anyone noticed? That's when fear finally cut through the fog. I told him that wasn't funny. He tilted his head like he was considering something. Then he said very softly, nobody's really noticing anything anymore. I tried to step around him. He reached out. Not fast, not aggressive, just enough to make contact. I stumbled back and tripped over a concrete parking block I hadn't seen. I hit the ground hard, knocked the air out of my lungs. My head rang. For a second, the world went fuzzy around the edges. He stood over me, hands at his sides, breathing steady, mask still dangling uselessly from his ear. He said he just wanted to feel someone again. Said it had been too quiet for too long. Said rules stopped mattering when no one was watching. I could see my own reflection in his eyes, distorted and small. He crouched down. I felt pressure against my ribs, something solid. Not sharp yet, just a promise. I don't remember deciding to scream. I just did. The sound came out raw and cracked, like it had been building me for weeks, with nowhere to go. It tore through the silence, echoed off brick and glass. Lights flickered on in the apartment windows above us. A door opened somewhere down the block. Someone shouted something I couldn't make out. The pressure vanished. He stood up immediately, already stepping backward, already disappearing into the dark, like he'd rehearsed it. No panic, no rush, just gone. I lay there shaking until someone I had never met before, my neighbor apparently, ran over to call the police. They came, took statements, walked the area, found nothing. No cameras working, no witnesses who'd seen his face clearly. At the station later, an officer showed me a corkboard covered in photos and sketches. Different men, same eyes, same build, same pattern. Late night encounters, lockdown violations, victims alone. Almost all men. Some didn't make it. They told me he'd been moving in between cities since March, slipping through cracks while everyone else stayed inside, using isolation like camouflage. They told me I was lucky, so I'm recording this now weeks later, because I keep thinking about how easily it happened, how badly I wanted someone to talk to, how quickly fear quietened when connection showed up, how trust felt like oxygen when I've been holding my breath for so long. If you're listening to this, if you're alone, if the silence is getting loud, remember this. Isolation makes you hungry. Loneliness makes you careless. And the desire for human connection can be weaponized. Not every stranger is reaching out to save you. Some are just checking how far apart the world has forced you to stand.